catch that either. Sorry.
Recording.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be, I think, if we all agree, this could be the last of the sort of weekly meetings. We go back to our old schedule, just because next week is the announcement we were working up towards. Does anybody want to kick off today? I don't have much to say myself. I don't know.
Well, I think the big question for me is what do we, with a week left to go or so before the big announcement, what do we need to cover in a week, and what's a priority, and what can we get by without?
Right. So, I saw some internal emails. Let me see if I can. Andy, I'm not sure if they're some of the PR folks and the media relations teams are looking for deployment schedules of some sort.
Yeah, so I've been talking to Chris on the IBM marketing side about all that stuff, right. And I think really what I said was sort of out of my hands a bit. That we had one sensor installed in Puerto Rico yesterday, which was the first of our sort of new sensors. Like we'd had two before, but they were not part of, they were old Grillo sensors. So, and they weren't connected to our network. So with this, it's quite exciting. It actually went pretty well, I should say, because I was expecting all sorts of problems. Like all of us who have sensors have had problems, I think. And it's strange enough, it went really well. And it was a non-technical person, like a very non-technical person that installed them. And so, the difficulty was just getting her to put it on her phone, the app. But once that was done, it all worked pretty well. And the one slip up was this thing about the permissions. Like she swore that she had clicked on the location permission on the app, but when we went into the settings, it turned out that we had to actually then override that. So I suspect that's something we need to make people aware of. But once it was provisioned, the whole getting onto the dashboard was no issue whatsoever. I don't know why it was an issue for me, but like she had no issue. She just used the same thing. She couldn't remember her password, so she had to do an email to redo her password, and then that was that. So congrats everyone. So it worked so far.
Yeah, well, I think it would be the mobile app will be better when we get that initial splash screen that moves the permission request up a little bit and kind of guides the person through it. I'm certain that I saw Pedro post sort of a screenshot of that, but then he never landed his code anywhere that I could find. I thought he had. We do have to maybe ask him. But anyway, we could reproduce the panel. Does anyone remember Pedro showing us that?
Yeah, that was in one of our Friday meetings, I think.
Okay. I'll scroll through some of the forums or something.
So
that, I think, Andy, to your point, I think that will help the people get the provisioning app up and running.
I did. So I've been testing. Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Sorry, Ryan. I just wanted to jump in and ask Andy about yesterday in Puerto Rico, that deployment. Is that related to Engine 4? Because I know we have that later in the week, and the comms folks were tracking that one pretty closely as well.
Yeah, that wasn't related to Engine 4. That was actually in the Puerto Rico Science Trust, which is another contact of Pedro's in Puerto Rico, who are one of our partners there. We will do Engine 4, but it wasn't yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that was with the Engine 4 one is on track for Friday.
Oh, great. Great. And there are some images that will come from, there's nothing exciting. It's just a person screwing something into a wall. But there are some images that we will get from that we can all use.
Yeah.
I can only imagine stage drilling,
But with reference to what's happening next week, next Tuesday at 11 Eastern time, so within all of our time zones, I think, President Clinton's going to announce the project or the implementation of the project in Puerto Rico. So I'll send everyone a link here when it's happening. It's likely that he'll get it wrong because he doesn't know much about the project, and we've just given him a few talking points. And there's been a lot of back and forth on those, on like 2 paragraphs of words. Like you wouldn't believe it, because whereas I'm completely like for all of us, I think describing it, we can sort of more or less get there. But for the people in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of responsibility associated with this project, and them putting their names, especially the seismic agency there, saying that we're going to do all of this life-saving stuff is politically difficult. But anyway, we finally agreed on something. We had to, basically, to conclude it, we had to take out the word seismic network from the title, because that might have affected the funding that the Seismic Institute gets in Puerto Rico, because they have another seismic network. So anyway, all good now. We are
okay. Good.
And I think I interrupted Ryan.
Oh, I was just going to ask about some technical thing with the sensor that I did get John one, the when we get the weird username or ID, that's the that long thing. So I've been resetting my sensor like a bunch of times when I was doing the dashboard development, and it worked almost every time just flawlessly. But for some reason, just one time, it did give me that weird ID, and I couldn't figure out. I wanted to tell you something that I did differently than the other times, but the only thing I could think of is that maybe. So I've noticed that when you do a factory reset on the sensor, it restarts in that process. So after, so during the provisioning, after you connect your Wi-Fi, it then restarts. And maybe I pressed the button to add the sensor to the network in the middle of that restart process. Would that cause anything?
Possibly. There is a little race condition there, but I had always, there is a race condition. I sort of know it's there, but I had convinced myself that it would never happen. But so you think you were on the mobile app and you said, connect my sensor before the actual sensor got connected to the internet?
Perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know. See, I don't know the sequence of events on the Node Red backend enough to say one way or the other. But
I can do? I bet you I'll purposely break it. I'll purposely break it to see what happens. It's a good clue. I can break the sensor side of the transaction with the database just to see what happens on the mobile app side of the database transaction, because they should both they should merge the record, sort of the sensor first, and then the mobile app adds to it. The mobile app adds details.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even though the PR just submitted, it doesn't do this. But instead of using the ID, well, I guess if we fix the problem, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But there's also the device ID that's in there, which we could use for the MQTT operations, which would mean that we don't have to, you can still interact with the sensor if your ID is off. But the ID doesn't allow, if the ID is off, it doesn't allow you to interact with the sensor, because now, it can't make the MQTT connection. But anyway, that's all just sort of technical implementation stuff.
Oh, all right. Would you just describe? Takes me a whole long time to set up the scenario. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
If I can, sorry, I was talking when I was on mute a second ago. If I can raise another issue about the provisioning process. Yesterday went very well, but there was a hiccup which we resolved very quickly. But I think at one point when I think she had put the Wi-Fi password in incorrectly, or something had happened incorrectly. It could have been, I'm not sure what it was, but it started searching. How on the app you can see that it's thinking about it, but there was never any timeout. Like it just kept doing that forever. and I'm not sure if it should have a timeout or whether it's meant to do things forever. But yeah, that could be a sticky point.
In the mobile app.
Yeah, because we were all confused as to whether the issue was a bad password for the Wi-Fi or her email was somehow being rejected, or we didn't know what was happening.
I totally believe the mobile app can be better improved, because I've done only the minimal amount of error. I've never done any error correction on the mobile app. I was just doing UX stuff. Yeah, there's Andy's good point. I don't know how to do that.
Okay, so maybe at some point in the near future we need to accelerate the React Native investigations. Yeah,
I recommend that.
Okay.
I have a few. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Just a few sensor-related stuff too, or also MQTT-related. Like we probably those like little sensor problems of mine we can have a look at later in a smaller group. But the MQTT, when I was testing the latency on Watson, for some reason it was super long, and many of those messages were not even coming through. I don't know if there is some bottleneck in there or why it was doing this, but when I was using the MQTT that you, Andy, and Adrian set up, that one is working just fine, and the latency is between 0.1 and 0.2 seconds when I'm sending the data from my machine to the MQTT and subscribing back to it. So that one works just fine, but the Watson IoT, it's like it starts at like 0.2, 0.5 seconds, and then the second batch, like in a second, like it's 5 seconds, and then it just stops coming almost altogether. So I created a few scripts, John. I don't know if you saw in the thread for testing that. So I sent it a few hours back. So we can like try it on multiple machines if we are experiencing the same problem. But I think it makes me think like whether there is like some setup of the Watson IoT that may cause this, or
could it be a rate? Could be a rate limiter because it's the light version, maybe that it's.
But now we switched. Yeah, he's. I think he's using a new one, right?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's the thing. Like I haven't gotten a new credentials, so I'm using still the same one. Okay.
I thought we gave you credentials. I gave Ryan credentials. All right, I need to give you credentials then.
Yeah. Okay. So
wait, have you given me credentials? Because I've got a sense that it's connected right now.
Yeah, no, the board. When you power on the board, and I even did the live migration of devices the other night. It didn't work exactly as I had expected because I thought I was going to watch it, and I should have just done it. But I migrated all the boards, even the ones that were live. I told them to switch to the new MQTT broker, or from different instances of the MQTT broker. Sort of, it's a managed MQTT broker. It's like one of these giant. It's called Message Site. It's a product for like 2 decades, and that's what's being open sourced. Anyway, I will send Václav new credentials. And Andy, if you want them, I can send credentials to you too.
No, I don't need them. Sorry, I was confused.
Yeah. Thanks. That may be the solution then.
Okay.
Otherwise, I did some work on the algorithms. From once in a while, I have an epiphany that something can be done simpler, and then I spent half a day changing the code and 2 days repairing the code. So
that's the story of my life too.
That's what I did now, and I think that we can get rid of some like regional things that I thought will have to be in there, and but still, so we can just run for the whole for all the sensors. We can just run it once, the size merge algorithm, but still, I think in future we want to be as close to those networks as possible for minimizing the latency. So but yeah, I think it will make.
So you don't have to pre-compute the grids in each region. Is that what you're saying?
I do have to, but like I'm kind of making that simplification that I assume that the velocity, seismic velocity, or the structure in the earth is the same in Puerto Rico as in Nepal, which is not exactly true. But you can do this assumption when you are not like very precise about things. So yeah, I'm making that assumption, and then like I create kind of virtual grid around the first station that detects an earthquake. So I have a pre-computed grid that I always center on the station that first experienced some shaking, whether it is an earthquake or it's not. So it like the grid kind of jumps all around. Before I had it like fixed in a certain region, and now I kind of have it like moving around. So yeah, like I've never like written an algorithm like this, so I'm also like, oh, maybe we can do it this way, and then in a week, oh, like maybe I could have done this. So, but this seems to work, and yeah, it will make our life easier. So we won't have to deploy multiple instances, at least not for now. And as I'm saying, like in future, when we want to minimize the latency, we will want to move as close as possible to those networks, but that's not right now.
Right. I know it's not completely related, but when we were doing the Mexico City alerts, we actually ended up just customizing the algorithm on the client device, because all we said was, because Mexico City, as you know, is built on a lake bed, so distant earthquakes are amplified, which means that what would normally not be destructive is destructive in Mexico City. So we just added a sort of a multiplier to the intensity expected in the region. We just geofenced it and added a multiplier. And I say this because I think a lot of stuff can be done on the client app. When we finally get around to creating our alerting system, we can be smart about what regions affect, have different effects from the original detection.
Yeah. You are right. Yeah, we should do that.
And Gareth, you were working on something interesting, weren't you? It was above my head, whatever it was, but it sounded very interesting.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to implement a bandpass filter on the acceleration so that we could then double integrate to find the displacement on a sensor. But there's no rush for this anyway. But I can see it's easy to implement a filter. What's difficult is working out what the tap coefficients are. And I still need to get to the bottom of that. I will do. You're on mute, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry. And then the promise there is that we can send less data and so reduce the overall burden of the infrastructure, right?
Yeah, you can do less processing in the cloud and more on the device, and so send less data. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about that. That's very good. And Václav, does that all make seismological sense to you?
Yeah, for sure. Like, this will be great, especially when we have those, I think, cellular stations and we really want to minimize the amount of data sent. But for now, I'm very happy that we are actually collecting data, because this will enable us to like train machine learning algorithms and stuff for the detection. And we want that too. So like, I don't think it's like, definitely we want to pre-process as much as we can on the sensors in future. But I think that we don't have to like hurry that way. Like if we record, a year worth of data, or it depends on the region probably, and depends on the local conditions. Like if we are not having a problem with data transmission, then I will transmit data. If we are having that problem, like, yeah, we'll definitely want something like that.
Could you imagine a hybrid system where possible you have, fixed Wi-Fi Ethernet stations that send whatever because of data, but that in sort of connectivity troubled areas, we would add, this additional processing on the device, and then somehow on the back end, we would sort of separate those two functions in the algorithm, so that if the sensor's already done the first part, it automatically feeds into the second part.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
problem at all. Like we can do it, that's very easy to implement, and I think that we should do it this way. So
We can have a low power mode which we switch on when we don't want to send much up. When things are running off batteries or with very low bandwidth.
Doesn't it take a while to wake up from that low power mode?
No, I'm not saying the standard low power mode. I'm saying the mode in which it doesn't send all the data; it only sends the displacement value, which would take a lot less power, which would be good for battery operated equipment, or equipment with a poor bandwidth to the cloud.
So you think it would take less power even if it does the math in the background?
No, I guess it wouldn't take less power, would it? It would just take less bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's important to have this for the future, because I think that we'll have systems that, as Andy is saying, that they will be like hybrid. Like some stations are going to be in a poor connection, some of them are going to be a better connection.
Well, already there's 10 devices in Puerto Rico which are going to be installed using cellular modems. So imagine someone is paying for a full-time 4G connection on each of these stations, and we're just plugging in to that sort of mini router on site, and it's sending continuously. So imagine if we could replace all of that with just a couple of kilobytes every now and again.
Strange things that people will do. Okay.
So for the 25th, the things that I have on my radar are both the website and the events page. And
you should play. Has everyone seen your video?
Oh, well, I can also just show I have the site up here too, and so you don't have to hear me ramble about things on the video.
I thought you were. Do you have it up and running?
Yeah, the PR hasn't been merged yet, but I just have the development version up on my screen here.
Yeah. Show us. It's awesome work. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. I was impressed.
So yeah, this is the new dashboard sensors page, and I mean everything that you see was done by Johnny and designed by Kristen. So I'm just hooking up the connections to it. But I did add a little. So I noticed people were having trouble finding their sensors instead of going to this filter up here. I added a little circle, which you now can click on and get to your sensor, and you can test it. See if mine tests. Yep, works. Restart it. Send 10 seconds of data. That really doesn't do anything on the dashboard, but on the back end, you'll be able to see the data come through. And then I also made it so that your own sensors filter to be the first ones that show up on this table.
That's good, because with 11 pages, in the past you had to tab through looking for your sensor.
Yeah. Now the big thing that I definitely would want to do. Oh, and we have the status colors on here too, which if we look at Puerto Rico, so there's 2 coming in as yellow, which means they haven't signed in for a week or so. But I'm assuming that's just because they haven't been set up yet, or there needs to be done something with it.
Oh, so those were the originals?
Yeah.
Those are
old sensors. I'm not sure that they're going to contribute to the network.
Okay, well so one of the more useful things that I've found with the stuff that I added, because I've used it a few times myself, is now so you can remove a sensor from the network, and that will both remove it from the database and do a reset on the configuration details on the sensor. So if anything goes wrong in the process, you hypothetically could use this to just delete everything and try the whole thing again. Now, I don't know if Cloudant actually deletes documents. That's something that we might have to be clear about in our sort of how we describe things, because if I understand it, Cloudant sort of keeps a copy of a record in the database, but doesn't but it deletes the latest revision of it or something like that.
right. Yeah, it's becomes an inactive record of some sort.
Yeah, but that's what it will do, and so far it's been useful to just reset everything. and try again if anything goes wrong in the provisioning process.
Oh, that's good. So, Andy, just so that you know what happens there. So, one reason why this is a useful device. So, if I set up my device like these are, one is for Adrian and one is for Diego. If I set them up here, I can do a reset. So I would register them. They would be in New York. They would be mine. Then if I do a reset and then put them in the box and send them to Adrian, and he turns it on, he would be able to provision it with the mobile app, and it becomes his sensor, and it goes to his map. So if you ever need to move a sensor from one location to another, you want to do a reset, because that picks up the new GPS coordinates from your mobile app, the provisioning app. Or if, like I just said, I claim one, I can unclaim it, send it to someone else, and they can claim it. That's another value of the reset feature.
I wonder, this is an unusual case, but just to, what would be awful is if someone moved it and then without thinking just plugged it in again, and we had the wrong coordinates. Should there be something eventually one day where in a firmware which if you try and re-provision a device, because you would need to for the Wi-Fi, that it would reset the database? Or is that not necessary?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
oh, yeah, sorry.
we could have to think through the scenario. So you're saying if I join a new network? Well, no. The only...
I know what you mean, Andy. Like if you provision a device for Wi-Fi at one place and then you take it to another place and plug it in an Ethernet cable. So I did exactly this today with my sensor. I took it from home to the office and I plugged it in Ethernet cable and it had the wrong location, of course. Or so I guess that's what you meant, Andy, right?
Yeah. Just that it has the wrong latitude, longitude. That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah. Well, so if you ever want to do another Wi-Fi, you do have to use the mobile app, and then the GPS coordinates would be upgraded in the database.
Of course. There we go.
But in Vaslav's scenario, he provisioned the app at home at one location with the mobile app. We stored the GPS coordinates, and then he took it to a different location, and he plugged it in with an Ethernet cable. And in that scenario, Neil and I debated for weeks a month ago what the right scenario was for that. It's if you don't find the Wi-Fi, but you find the Ethernet, use the Ethernet. And it just assumes that you're in the right location. How do you know? The sensor doesn't know.
I guess eventually we just have to assume people are, doing the right thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be that common. I think it's probably going to be.
Well, wouldn't the algorithms kind of clean that out? Because if one sensor is acting wacky or what have you, the rest of the sensors around there have to actually say the same thing is happening in order for you to even get an event.
Yeah, it's right. It's just that sensor would be it would be most likely useless, or definitely useless, and hopefully it wouldn't be harming, or it probably wouldn't be harming much. Especially if we have others plenty of sensors around. If it's 1 every 100 sensors, that plays no role. If it's 1 in 4 sensors, I can imagine that there's going to be a scenario where this influences something, but it's quite unlikely. I think that we probably have bigger problems than this.
The other thing this does is I set up a check for the latest firmware version that's been released on GitHub. So if it's 1.5.1, it says it's up to date. But if the API returns a different firmware version that's more updated, like 1.5.2, you'll get a little warning up here. that says new firmware available, and then you can update it, which will run the update firmware, or the topic that will ask for an update. Now, it doesn't really know if it actually has updated or not, although that's not a hard thing to do. We would just need to check the database after this update now, after we give it enough time, like maybe we'll give it a minute or something to update and then check the database to see if it worked or not. But that might have to wait for just a later version, and we don't have an update right now anyway, so we can wait on that.
There's no danger that someone.
There's a lot of scenarios where it fails to upgrade, like if the server certificates are invalid, or in my case, it got browning out in the middle of the software upgrade. So yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where it fails. And the whole point is it fails, but then comes back to the prior version, and that way it continues to run.
Yeah.
And then we can subsequently either fix it, right, and hopefully it'll eventually be upgraded.
Yeah.
I've actually completely screwed up ESP32 boards with bad flashing, and it's always fixable. It's because you just write to the partitions. I've never had an issue fixing it.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think this is probably the sensors page that we're going to have for the 25th. I don't know who would, the 25th is probably going to bring in people that don't have sensors. So they're probably never even going to don't have logins, or they'll probably never see this page. So the events page is probably more important for our date on the 25th. But the big thing to probably call this a 1.0 sensors page is I would like to be able to highlight, if you're managing a network, you want to be able to highlight these rows and have it show up on the map. Weirdly enough, that's kind of a intricate thing to do in our current setup with React and Mapbox. So that might take a little bit of time to implement. We might have to refactor how the map is displayed a little bit, unless Johnny, you can figure something out while still maintaining your GPA.
Yeah, I did that for an events page. Could you maybe not look what I did there?
Yeah, let's take. So when you highlight over this, okay. So you already figured it out. Yeah. So when I work on the events page, I'll see if we can make some of that or make the sensors page do the same thing. Because I was getting, every time I tried to do it, it just reloaded the map because it was changing the props going to the map.
I don't remember how I fixed that. I think, well, I don't actually remember. I don't update the state, I don't think.
Okay. Good to know. But anyway,
I just don't remember. It's been too long. But it shouldn't be too hard to figure out from the code. Yeah.
Brian, do we want to? I just realized I went to dashboard as an unauthenticated user.
Yeah.
And you're right. I only see events. Why do we hide? What was the decision that we hide the sensors?
Well, potentially just limits how many people can see sensor locations and the details of the sensors. There is sort of a whole side of this that maybe we should talk about. If we're going on more of a, global perspective on next week with the foundation or Bill Clinton talking about this, there are some security details with this dashboard that probably are not where they should be if it's released to the entire world. But I'm guessing that is probably fine with everyone at this point because there aren't that many sensors out there. So if someone, for whatever reason, is able to send a test sensor or something like that, it's not going to, it'll be Václav, John, myself, and possibly one or two people in Puerto Rico that that receive that. But as this grows out, I'm going to be more and more concerned with the security of it. If you can send widespread tests to lots of sensors, so if we could, so I would say, along with our React Native, our need for React Native developers, if we know people that are specialists in network security and the security for sort of the back end programming for this stuff, I know a little bit about it, but there are definitely people that specialize in that. It's probably not a bad thing to have on this project.
But here's a question though. When I go into my into the network sensors page, I can't send test alerts to any sensor that's not mine. How would someone do that?
Well, they would have to hack the system, right? It's not designed to do it if you're a non-malicious member
Shall I hit the pause record button while you explain it?
Yeah, yeah. Let me explain all the weaknesses in the in the current implementation of it. Well, I mean, it is open source, so the idea is that if we put it out there, people will fix it. Unfortunately, I don't know if we have. We might be more likely that people exploit it rather than rather than fix it. There's probably not anything that's glaring at this point, but it certainly would help to have multi-factor authentication on accounts, and also and John, we talked about this, but a secure connection to the MQTT broker, which we could probably figure out in the next few days.
I do have a small question, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
And it's just because I've not been very up to date recently because I've been so busy with everything. But I heard something about Bill Clinton. What was that about?
Yeah, that's the next week. It's the Andy. It's the Clinton Foundation or the Global Clinton.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. The Global
yeah.
Clinton Initiative is a part of the foundation, and they have a lot of work in the Caribbean. So, Johnny, they are going to talk about how our project is being implemented in the Caribbean. So they're not going to talk about OpenEEW in general. He's just going to say 2 paragraphs, which is apparently, it's a lot apparently, about how we're going to save lives one day in Puerto Rico.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So that is all to say that the sensors page is coming along, but it still has some work to go before I'd be satisfied with it being on the global scene.
It looks pretty good though.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I really made use of it the last 2 days. I think it's great.
Yeah, and it'll be once we get this and Adrian. So I was going to ask you to get this live. Do we have to? I need to set some secrets for the MQTT connection. Are there 2 different secrets for the staging and production, or are they under the same?
They're using the same secrets now. But yeah, I was going to actually bring this up earlier when you guys were talking about moving to Watson IoT. Since so many of our microservices are connecting to the same place, we probably should use just one secret that has the same information. I think John has a secret called MQTT secrets, and maybe we can use that. But yeah, so that would have to be updated to point to John's new Watson IoT.
Yeah, which I can go in and do, and as long as we have both Adrian and John here at the same time. So what would it take to add that credentials file to make it a secure connection with MQTT? Would that be just something Adrian would have to add to the container?
Adrian, what we would have to do is it's a messaging.pem file. Basically, so one idea, Ryan, is you could put it as either as a file or as a string, and you just do that in Node as a string, and you can have it defined.
Oh yeah, so we could potentially put it in like the secrets, right, and then just bring it in as a environment variable. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's how. That's right. Because we do the certificates for the websites the same way. We just use a Kubernetes secret and then pull it in.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Whoosh, that's way easier because I was like, oh, we're gonna get a PEM file in there, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
Can I go back to a comment John made a second ago? I sort of second the idea that a non-logged-in user can see the sensor locations. I think for me that is the strength of our project is all these nodes around the world eventually, and I think just seeing earthquake events doesn't tell enough. They're too infrequent.
Well, the one place that it will, when we do the events page, which I think it's going to be more like me just sort of digging in and trying to figure out how to add as much interesting things to that events page before the 25th. But but it will show the detections on the when there is an earthquake anywhere, but specifically on the Mexico network now. And the detections, correct me if I'm wrong, Vladislav, but like one detection equals one sensor. So on the events page, you would see basically where the sensors are, but you would not be getting the sort of sensor data back that you would on the sensors page. Which I don't know. I mean, we could talk to Kristen what she thinks about maybe adding sensors to the events page. Maybe, this goes back to when we originally did the design and we just sort of decided that this would be the way it is, but there's no, if we want to reveal sensor locations on the events page, that's not a big deal.
It's one thing that Andres Spies mentioned, which I thought was right, which is that people who join these sort of communities, in terms of sensor owners, and he gave an example, they, they're quite proud of the fact that they've added a dot to a map. And that's part of what they're trying to do here. And they can tell their friend, "Oh, you can see my dot in so and so place." And I think the fact that those dots become hidden within their account, I'm not sure. Like when people sign up, maybe we could just say your dot will be shown on the map.
I mean that definitely is a possibility. I'm guessing we'd probably want to obscure some of the information in the device records. Probably not show the MAC addresses.
But that point, what would be cool is if you if you're gonna say, "Oh, I'll point to it. Look, my thing is on the map." So maybe we can have them be able to edit the name of the thing. So like the dot could say that it's your sensor, give it a name, or even change the little logo to have your picture or something random like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely would build a community. You have like faces all over the map that these are all the people that are contributing to this thing, like a collage of it.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Definitely, I think a version 2.0, but yeah, go ahead.
I agree that the sensors that they would be great to show if possible. And I'm sorry if we are coming like late with this, and I know that you have spent a lot of time like doing it like this way, and we should have like probably realized before. But I think that at least in the initial stage, and maybe for quite some time, we're gonna have many more stations sensors than events, because before we really get some solid earthquakes and before we really build up some network, we won't have that many events. So the event page is going to be probably like we'll put those historical events that the Mexico network has recorded, but it's about 20 events or so. And then, like having those sensors would be really nice and really cool to show. I don't know. Yeah, like I really don't understand security at all, but maybe you would just like, if you log in, could you just gain rights to do something with those sensors that belong to you? But yeah, maybe MAC address and location is also sensitive. Like you guys know much more about this than I do.
Yeah, I would probably, if we were going to do it, it would not be hard just to at least add the sensor locations as little dots on the events page map, and we'd keep the sensors page itself the way it is. And then if we want to change that later on, we can call that version 2.0. But if we're talking about just getting something looking good before next week, then yeah, we could just add the sensors to the events page, obscure as much data as we can, except for just some general geographic, probably even not status. Like we'll keep status to be a sensors page thing. And then add the events.
That makes sense. Having little dots in the events map makes sense to me.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah. That sounds good.
We need to make sure that we don't expose, like, even if we don't show it on the events page, we need to also not show it on the API.
Yeah, because, well, the API is you have to be authenticated to talk to the GraphQL endpoint, so that at least has a little bit of security around it. Yeah,
but for the plotting the sensors on the map where you don't have to be authenticated on the events page.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
if we're not going to render the information, we should not give people the information for the API.
Yeah, no, we'll just, before it even gets to the front end, we'll obscure it or change it around. So yeah, that's the events page, and then the other thing is the website. So how much of a website do we need, right? Because we still have the wiki. So So I'm trying to figure out how to divide up my time between now and Tuesday, and I haven't had a day off in about 2 weeks. So
Can I
Don't do
suggest
anything else.
Can I suggest that the bare minimum isn't much, like in my opinion, anyway. I feel like to some extent, I feel we even don't need a website at this stage. To some extent, like we can get by without one. Like I don't think it's the end of the world. But at the bare minimum, one of the things that I find is that people don't know we have a dashboard. So for me, I don't want to now change what we're doing in any way, but I'm just suggesting that for me, the dashboard is almost the website, or it's a good calling card for what we're doing. And if the two could be merged somehow, if there was another page somewhere, or just for me, the number one thing is that people know how to get to the dashboard, that they can see it's a real project, real technology thing, not just a WordPress site someone made somewhere, or it's like it's happening.
What if, and this may be a radical idea, given that we're probably doing this completely different at the moment. But what if we had documentation inside the same app, inside the same dashboard, so that people going to the documentation immediately see, hey, what's that? Is that a full-on dashboard? Whereas if we separate it, maybe we don't create that association.
So you're talking about like just putting the docs right in the dashboard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, potentially. I mean, but the thing is, the wiki is so sort of set up already for that. Like, I just feel like we could link pretty easily to the wiki, and have it explain all the sort of technical details of everything.
Yeah, but my reasoning was not going from the dashboard to the wiki, but going from the wiki to the dashboard.
Yeah.
So that people seeing, oh, hey, there's this thing called OpenEEW. Let's check it out. They go to the docs and then they immediately see, oh, what's that? The dashboard? But because they see it on the left of the panel, so they naturally go look at it. At least I'm not a UX specialist, but
yeah,
UI specialist, but I feel like that's what I would do.
Yeah, we have a link, or I think Andy included a link to the dashboard from the wiki, so they see it on that they sort of see it over there.
Actually, I have a good example of what we could do instead to keep it simple.
But I think we, like, no matter what we do, I still think we need some kind of landing page that just looks good so people can see the project, and it doesn't need to be complicated. We probably don't even need a lot of child pages at this point. We can add that later. But just something like, I could just use Kristen's design that she had from a while back and just make something that looks carbony, and like it connects with the dashboard.
Yeah, so something that Daniel often talks to us about is Project OWL, which is obviously an important other project in the IBM ecosystem here. And what's interesting about their landing page is that it has very few things on it, but what it does do, which I quite like, is it talks about implementations. And for me, that's it's such a basic site, but it has a sort of lovely graphic side to it, and it leads you to learn more about how they've installed it in places. Which Puerto Rico deployment is one of the CTAs on the hero section, yeah.
Can I share my screen for 1 second? I've thought about this like landing page for a little bit. And I also think that it would be nice to have one. I'm not sure whether it needs to be right now before the 25th or after. But if you can see my screen, I think we really need just like, this is just print screens and stuff. But I think that it would be nice to have a landing page that says, okay, like we are OpenEEW and like what we are, like in a few sentences, what is an earthquake early warning system, where it can be useful, some kind of a mission statement, and then like pretty much like who you are, like how you can get involved, like either if you are a developer, designer, or engineer or whatever, and you want to contribute to the code, or you want to protect your region somehow, and you want to establish a network, or you want to buy a sensor. These were like the 3 use cases that I could have thought about.
Go back to those 3 cases. Sorry, let me just think about them again. That's really good.
Yeah, those are the 3.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, those are the 3. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Very good.
Mm-hmm. And I think that like pretty much we wouldn't need anything more. Like if you are a developer, like there can be a link straight to the GitHub wiki. if you want to establish a network, like you should probably contact us and we can talk about details. And if you want to buy a sensor, I don't know where, like whatever the link is going to be. And then from this landing page, there can be like more than just the dashboard, but the dashboard would be there. Because I think that, for example, that Raspberry Shake, I don't really like their site that much, but I think they like normally it's done this way, like also USGS and all these, like whoever has a dashboard, there is a landing page and the dashboard is accessible from the landing page. So I think that it could be something like
the dashboard. The dashboard in this is one of the most important menu items. I would even have it like almost as a button on the end. Like have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can I share my screen really quick as well?
Yeah.
By the way, I think that's awesome. Just my first take on that is that I love that. I think that's really good.
Yeah. So Václav, I mean, can you in the next few days, could you send that to me? Because what I think we'll end up trying to get for the 25th is that's exactly the information I would think of trying to convey, and we may not have a place to go for all the like who you are at this point, unless Andy, are there easily accessible places in the wiki that would be able to link to those three things?
I'm more than happy to work. If someone tells me what to do, I'll do it. If you tell me to create 3 different areas of the wiki, I will create 3 different areas of the wiki. No issue at all.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going. Is I think if there's 3 different like major sections of the wiki that cover those 3 things, those cover all the sort of entry points into the project. And like, I could just take Václav's design there and the content of it. I can mix it with what Kristen had before, with the design that she came up with, and we can get some of this information by the 25th up there, and then we can go from there after that.
So let me understand. So someone visiting the website, they go to those 3 different sort of CTA boxes, and each one will take you to a relevant section in the wiki. And then that will take you to wherever you need to go in GitHub, I assume. Or the store one would just take you to the store, which is the PCBWay store.
Isn't there some like quick start for if you want to buy a sensor? Because we definitely know we don't want people like just buying sensors without knowing like how this all mixes in things.
Well, we shouldn't even just say, do you want to buy a sensor? We say, do you want a sensor? Because people can make it as well. So yeah, there is a section for making sensors. That's right.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking for the little dashboard button on the landing page was the following. So this is from a project that I also work on. So what we have on our marketing page is we have this little open dashboard button right here.
Yeah. And I like that because I think that's good because we're not going to have a lot of menu items by next week, right? We're only probably going to have just the landing page and then maybe a big button to go to the dashboard and then those call to actions further down. And I think that's good for people coming into the project.
That's all we need.
Absolutely. I really like what we're doing here specifically because it's a big flashy button. You can immediately see it. And what I like, what Václav showed is like the buttons in the list. But if I can give one criticism to it is that it doesn't really stand out. Maybe that's on purpose. And maybe we want to make it stand out. And I feel like having the way it works here might not be. Come on, Chrome. Might not be a bad idea.
I think that looks beautiful. That's really nice. And I think to Ryan's point, having a one-page site with just a dashboard button for me makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the way this one works is we have basically like a little marketing note here, and then like some numbers, a little slideshow, and what it offers. So I feel like we can probably do a little bit of the same.
Are you using a CSS library for that, Johnny? Or are you?
No, I think we do it all in house. But I don't do the marketing. I do the dashboard.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's those I can website events page and website are my priorities before the 25th.
The one thing that Václav's thing showed me that I really liked was this thing about I forgot the sequence, but the thing about the map. I think that's really important. Having where we want to install these things, and I wonder how we can do that graphically. There's a nice vector map we can use as an SVG or something. I don't know how you would do that, but I think that's a really important element that we haven't communicated yet to people.
Yeah, I think it is important. As I thought about it, I think it is important to make clear that it's not like really meant as in a way it is a global system, but in a way it's not. In a way it's for a regional system. So like there are some regions that are much more important to place sensors in than others. And yeah, we can just show a map and in a few sentences explain where the risk or where the system is meant to be in. Because, for example, there are plenty of seismically active regions like the US or Japan where our system is probably not really meant for, because they have some, their own like earthquake early warnings. So it doesn't mean that like we should not encourage people to place sensors in there, but I think that we should make clear that there are somewhat specific regions that are a priority.
If it helps, Ryan, I could make a sort of a vector global map. I think I've got an illustration somewhere from the internet, and I can just color them using the risk. I can color each country using the risk map, and then we can also modify the ones that already have EEWs.
Yeah, and even like, so I would say, so we have that meeting tomorrow, right? With Kristen, and we were going to talk about kind of who we're targeting, which is definitely a good thing to know. But maybe we could also use that time to just try and figure out what exactly nail down a layout for what we would want for the 25th for a website, because Kristen will be there and that'll help us. So maybe we use that time for that, because we can, something like that, we could put together an illustration for it, or we could but would we need that done by the 25th, right? Can we just basically get people interested in the project, and then a second or third version of this can show more specifically what, where people need to be involved?
Yeah, definitely keeping it simple, because I think the messaging on Václav's thing made a lot of sense to me, more than Kristen's one, because Kristen wasn't so involved with the who and how, which we've developed recently, and maybe we all had misguided her in the past. I think now it's a little bit clearer, at least to me it was. So I really like the content, which or the sequence which Václav showed us just now.
Yeah, I think probably using. So, are we good with the? Do you remember the mock-up that she made before? I know she was going to possibly add some a lot of stuff to that, but I think she is running a team now, so she has a little bit less time to do designs. But if I use the design from that and then mix it with Václav's content, I mean, does that sort of work?
Yeah, in general, yeah. By one comment there, and this is really subjective, so please, everyone ignore me if they want to. My one comment there was it felt a little bit like sort of print design. It was very, very empty space, and like if I remember going through it, and it felt very grown up almost. And I wondered, which would be good for like a documentation site or something, but it lacked like for example, the site Johnny just showed us was quite a modern, exciting site. And it was a very standard layout as well. That's like most business websites look like that as well. I don't know. There's something appealing about this sort of very more traditional, modern site which Johnny showed us. So I don't know how to communicate that very well, but that was my initial impression.
That might come down completely to font, because your brain is picking up on a lot when you're looking at different types of fonts. Okay. And the IBM Carbon theme uses the IBM Plex or something like that font, and it just conveys a certain amount of adultness and professionalism, because I think that's what the theme is going for. But like, I think the one that Johnny just showed is that Open Sans is the font that I think is on there, the sans serif font that's there. And like there's a tremendous, like, you could probably just take the site that Kristen has and just change the font on it and make it look a little more playful. But yeah, let's talk about that tomorrow, because that's kind of one of those design details that we can jump into.
It says Source Sans Pro.
Sans Pro, yeah.
But yeah, I don't actually work on that site specifically. I work on a dashboard related to it. I don't even have access to the source code of it. So even if I did, I couldn't help you with it because, contracts.
Okay.
But yeah, if we had like a little button up there which would link to the dashboard, I think that would help greatly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk more tomorrow about all that stuff. And
so tomorrow's a meeting. There's a meeting as well?
it's a meeting every day, Johnny. I like your statement before where you said, well, it's a meeting, so you have to show up, do well in corporate culture. Yeah, there is a meeting.
Isn't it? It's on Friday, isn't it?
No, we wanted to meet tomorrow to brainstorm on the website.
Okay, so did I miss any previous meetings due to that?
No.
Okay.
I feel the same way, Johnny. I didn't know anything about this meeting. Don't worry, you're not alone here.
Okay.
we weren't invited. That's all.
We can.
We're very secretive about that one.
So is that a meeting?
So I always suggest, even if we don't advertise the meetings, we take minutes and just post the minutes. Hey, I met with Adrian. We discussed whatever. That way, we're all kind of up to date.
No,
we
this
might
one
also
was advertised in the thread.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone is invited.
Is that something that? So the meeting of tomorrow, is that a meeting that was moved from Friday to tomorrow, or are both meetings happening?
I would say we might be able to not do Friday if we do tomorrow, because I don't know what more we would talk about with the dashboard if we cover this stuff. Sensor.
I'm trying to get this to Adrian before I've got like an hour. My day gets really compressed in an hour. So I'm trying to I got to run, get this off to the UPS store.
Yeah, sounds good. Andy, you're on mute. Andy's.
Sorry, Vastav, can you post a screenshot of your thing so we can all look at it on the as a source for I thought the words you used were very good as a source for the content.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't mind, PDF, whatever you can do. Yeah.
I mean, it is, but yeah.
I'm sure Kristen can make it look good.
Yeah, if Kristen can come tomorrow, let's stick with the meeting tomorrow, because I know her schedule is really busy these days, and then we'll decide tomorrow if we even want to do a dashboard meeting or not.
Yeah, I can probably attend both. Just let me know when is the timing for the meeting tomorrow. Is it just the same usual hour for the dashboard meeting, or?
I think it's let's see.
If you guys can just give a quick shout before you start the meeting, before, then everyone.
Am I able to ping the channel?
Yeah, I just write @channel. Can you not do that? It gives me a warning before I do.
I don't think I should probably try that, but I'll probably upset everyone.
Well, I don't think. But if you do, I mean, what happens is if you go to a smaller channel like Docs. Oh no, that's quite a big channel. Anyway.
No, if the occasion arises, I might try it, and if it doesn't work,
no, try to set it now. Write channel, but don't actually send it. Just write channel and then press send once, and a pop-up will come up saying, "Are you sure?"
No, it pops up for me. So if it pops up for me, it probably means that I'm able to do it.
Yeah. So don't do it, but if you need to, do it.
Did we ever come up with a time for tomorrow's meeting, or we just decide Thursday was?
Heck it, whatever we feel like.
We were talking about time for yesterday, but I think that we didn't set time for Thursday yet. I think we talked about 2 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, if it's around the same hour, that would be perfect, because any later is probably not doable.
All right, but
anything works for me, so up to you guys. It's evening anyway.
What about 3 a.m. in the morning?
Yes.
It
is what it
is. So 2 p.m. Pacific works for you?
Is that the CT one?
2 p.m. Pacific works for me, yeah.
Is that so? How far away from now is that? Is that an hour ago, or is that an hour in the future?
That's
Right.
an hour from now, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's late.
Oh no, it's not. Sorry, we said Pacific or Central.
I think you meant Central, didn't you? 2 p.m. Pacific is quite late for Europe.
Yeah, it is, but I think that there was someone had some preference on that time, I thought. But if we can do earlier, the better for me.
Yeah, if it's 11, that'll be 11 p.m. for me. I don't think I would be able to.
Okay.
I would be able to listen, but I wouldn't be able to talk on that without waking everybody up.
All right, we can figure it out on Slack. We'll post a.
Yeah, we can also ask Kirsten. So.
Yeah. I might have to run also though because I need to. Supposed to call someone at 1 o'clock here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I'm gonna stop the meeting now. That's okay, and I'll see some of you tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, it sounds
just let me
good.
know what the timing is. If you do end up deciding the timing, it would be perfect if you ping the channel, because then I can actually if I don't miss it. If you rather not ping the channel, it's not necessary.
We like doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels good to send a ping out to everyone.
Yeah, imagine doing that in a 420,000 member server.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
better have something good to say. All right. Yeah. I'll see everyone tomorrow.
Okay. Take care.
Yep.
Yep.